shows for 20 plus years at the university, and I've worked with many students, even a lot of the people I've worked with, for example, we've studied at Preston, so to be asked to do something for me, that's a real honour. My name's Flanagan. I'm an illustrator, digital artist, content creator, illustrator, but one of those things. I got a brief from Andy, gives me a call, said, do you want to get involved? It's about failure, and I was like, thanks for thinking of me. A bit like Jordan before, I really have experienced failure a lot through my career, and you all will, you will too. But what I've done again, like Jordan says, is what can you learn from that? What can we take from that and make ourselves better, and once that project is better all the way through our creative career? So I'm going to talk a bit about my background and how I became an illustrator, because it wasn't a clear path. I didn't study as an illustrator, so I'm going to do a bit about that. Then I'm going to talk about my close to no cigar moments, and then I'm going to talk about some of the projects where I did get a cigar, because I'm here to talk about. So this is me, which is a bit embarrassing. 11 years old, 10 or 12 years old, was at school. You've all probably done it. You're at high school, you do your first work experience. It's your first experience of working life. This was the only creative job they could find me, and that was work for a heating engineer company where actually I worked at the explained to me I had to work at an easel. I had to take the architect's plans, put tracing paper on the top, and then trace the architect's plans. That then went to someone else, and they would add in heating engineer systems to those plans. This is my first day. I was 2 minutes literally from the house, which was at this point, I didn't have to go anywhere. And it was based 2 minutes from the school, so I was photographed first day, first minute. When you look back, you think, why did I get all the girls at school? And you realise you're all dead in shirt and a paisley tie. You realise, it's like, oh yeah, that's fine. So first day, they show me what to do. So you have to use the pen, the rulers, and measure and trace these things out. I really enjoyed it. I was getting up to lunchtime. And one of the things he explained to me was, if you make a mistake with the tracing paper, drawing on the tracing paper is, you can't rub it out with a rubber, you have to use a razor. And that was literally a razor like that. So they gave me that, and just before lunch, I'm drawing away and making a mistake. So I think, oh, with the razor, and I scratch out a bit of the ink, and then I put it back down and working again, and I think, where's that blood come from? And I realised I cut my finger open, I sliced it open. So I thought, it's my first day, first morning, I don't want to see this, so I just put my hands together, tried to dry the blood. And so I went from lunch, ran out, and ran home 2 minutes in the house. My bedroom in my house was in the loft, so I got home, put a bandage on it, put a plaster around, bleeding profusely. I went into my bedroom loft. Oh, went to go back down, he had to climb out of my loft, and I slipped with my finger, and I hit my chin, and I cut my chin open, and I basically had to put a big bandage on my chin and thing, and I didn't have mobile phones and things like that, so I had to literally go back to work, and I walked in, and they were like, oh my god, what's happened? And I was like, finger bandage or chin bandage. So I'm prepared for failure. My first day of experience was a complete failure. Growing up, I was obsessed with two things, football and art. If I wasn't playing football or watching football, I was drawing or painting. They were my two obsessions. And when I wasn't doing any of those two things, I was really worried about this. It's not around anymore, you possibly don't know, you know what it is, but to me when I was a kid, this is what my pocket money went on. I bought the annuals, the comics, everything. I suppose I was a bit obsessed because being one of the lad and on the football was a superstar, it was just a bit of an obsession for me. I used to love everything about it, the way that they showed graphically how the ball went in the net, how it hit the post, how it was tackled. I just used to read it over and over again. It's a big obsession for me, and you'll obviously see through my presentation how much of an influence it's had on me. When I studied, I actually, when I left school, I was going to be an artist, and I said to my mum, she said, what are you going to do? I'm going to be an artist. She said, no, you're not, there's no money in it. And she said, what else is there? I said, well, primarily graphic design. I said, that's what we're doing. So I went and studied graphic design, I qualified as a graphic designer, went for a job, quite a few jobs, and I got hired by a company called Forepoint, which is now Forepoint. The guy who hired me actually is Simon Bailey, who's actually one of the lecturers on the graphics course now. And before I started Forepoint, he was a lecturer at the university as well. So Simon actually hired me, and we actually built up Forepoint with a lot of the students that actually came from Newcastle as well. So I got to work with those people. So this is me when I first started. My dad was telling me, wearing a football shirt for some reason. And that was back out. I started in 97, that's in 98. In context to how long I actually stayed at Forepoint. My team, Man City, when I started, we relegated to third tier with football, and by the time we left, we won the Premier League twice. And I quite like looking at that now, because John just talked about being a United fan, and how he wasn't happy about that, but I was very happy about that. But that's how long I was there. When I was there, Forepoint, a brilliant agency, they're amazing what they do, and they work with a lot of risk-sensitive industries, so that could be working with BAE, or it could be working with the nuclear industry. And my job, my role was to work really closely with Simon on their nuclear client projects. And it doesn't sound great, but for me, it's the most interesting thing that I've ever done, and I got to work on all different types of projects. I got to work on exhibitions, got to work on brochures, annual reports, brand rollouts, tokens, everything you think on websites, apps. I did it all, and all of that, working from starting as a junior at 21, making brews, taking a post, all the way up to when I left, which was 21 years later, as a design director. It was an amazing place to work for, and that's what I did. But, because it was a very complex thing that I was working on every day, I got home and I needed to vent, I needed to get out what I wanted to do creatively, and that was through illustration. When I was at college and things, I didn't really know what illustration was, and I didn't really see it as a course, and it was a course, I suppose. So graphics was what I went into, and I'm glad I did that. But for me, I found illustration, and I found that I could create illustration through digitally. Not that I can't draw on paint, I just love to do it digitally. I love the idea of drawing something and then actually being able to put it out again really quickly on a computer. So I was going home every night, after working 9 till 6 at Forepoint, and just doing anything, just trying to, as all illustrators know, trying to develop a style, trying to get something that they can hang as theirs, and then get commissions from. And I was trying everything from drawings to vector characters and everything. And then it never went anywhere. I got a couple of magazine bits and stuff, but nothing. And I realised that's what I wanted to do. It's a real passion for me. And then I remember watching a thing on Ricky Gervais about The Office, and he mentioned that when he created The Office, the reason it was such a success was he understood it. He worked in an office. He understood the dynamics of an office, what the humour was, what the politics was, what would be open and what would not. And that's why it's genius, because he knew all about it. And I just thought, what do I know about? I know about football and I know about art. So that's what I did. And I created this character. So this is my favourite footballer, David Silva. I created this. It's not my favourite piece of work. I look back at it and cringe, but I did it, I created it. It's not a style that I use nowadays, but I did it, and I posted it on Flickr. So most of you won't know what Flickr is nowadays. At the time, it was the Instagram of the day. So I posted this, and didn't think anything of it, got a few likes and different things, and then an agency got in touch, which is quite strange, because Jordan talked before about being at music. It's actually music who got in touch with me. It probably could have been him that did that, I can't remember. And they got in touch with me and asked if I'd illustrate the whole squad. Well, I've got a full-time job. I'm getting emails from this top design agency asking me to illustrate the whole squad for Man City. Man City's my team. I can't afford someone to take me, if I'm honest. And then I went on to illustrate the whole squad, and these were used on wall graphics in the stadium, which was great, because I was a City fan, season ticket holder. Me and Dad used to go and look at my work on the wall. There was cards, the players were photographed with them, they were on the programmes, and then the whole cartoon series, which was like 30 episodes long, which I just learned it on the book, because I'd done a comic thing before, I just did it, and I gained loads of experience from it, but I didn't gain loads of exposure from it, because I wasn't really on social media, I wasn't really doing things with these things. Even got to the point where he asked me if I'd come with me into the ground for City TV, and I said, oh yeah, I'll come, but as long as I can bring the agent. And then I took a dad. So me and the dad walked around, that's all cool, and I walked around the stadium, and they said, oh, we took us to different places to be interviewed, and they ended up saying, oh, we're going to go pitch side, and me and the dad so we went, and that was me being interviewed. I didn't even play now. I mean, it blew my mind to the possibilities of what can be done. With one illustration, I got to that point, and I thought, what else can I do? And I didn't want to do that illustration style. I didn't want to know that illustration style because I didn't enjoy it. So I set about creating every illustration style that I could think of, and I was trying everything from simple graphics to more detailed. I was trying everything I could to represent football, and I thought, this is my market, this is where I'm going to get myself out there. And Twitter for me was just getting going, and Instagram and things like that. So I was posting things out, tons of likes and follows, and like following things going up and everything. So not long after that, Arsenal got in touch. And Arsenal got in touch and said, can we work with you? Because we really like all your styles. We want to be able to just put different content all the time. This is what I could do. I could create different content for them on a regular basis. And that went on to be player illustrations for the website on the far right. I did playing card set for them. I did program covers. I did social media stuff. Even when Arsene Wenger left, they did a whole animated series, which my illustration sort of built up while I was talking. It was amazing to work on. And that to me was just brilliant because they were asking me to do something new all the time. So I was getting paid to experiment and create new styles and do new things. Like 1 week I try texture, 1 week I try really simple, 1 week I try something else, and they paid me to do that. So it was an amazing project for me. And people obviously saw that then because they saw my Arsenal stuff. So I got commissioned by Monaco to do player illustrations. The Guardian did the McGregor Mayweather fight. Man City asked me to do products for the shops. CNN contacted me to work on an illustration of Donald Trump for their website because I've done a random stained glass window design somewhere and someone in New York had seen it and commissioned me, which was crazy. These things were coming in. I even did like banners for Twitter and bringing Rugby with 40-foot banners. I got tickets to Rugby. It just went crazy. By the time of me working at Forepoint, and I did work at Forepoint, I never took days off, never took sick, I never did this sideline, and it never went over Forepoint work. I tried my best, I worked hard for that team, so I loved them all, and I loved the company. But it got to the point where I was working with some of the top clubs and agencies all around the world, and I was also doing a full-time 96 job for one of Forepoint's biggest clients, and I had a team of people that I co-managed. I was dealing with clients, emails, costings, going to meetings in Cumbria and coming back. And it just got to the point where it was too much. My work-life balance was awful. The show was completely work. I had 2 kids, my wife, we had a new house and everything, and it wasn't working. I made myself ill. So I had to make a decision, and that decision, this is a quote that I really like where it goes going, and it is true. If you're working all the time, if you're constantly got your head in work, you're missing out on so much. And you're missing out on your family and friends and having an actual life and work can overtake that. So I made a decision, and let's just show the family basically. So I told Forepoint I was leaving. We were having our 3rd child at the time, a little girl, Charlotte, and actually the day I left, she was born. So it was like one thing, it was kind of like, I just quit my job, which was all the security, my mortgage payments, all different things, my pension, all different things. And we just literally had a baby, a little girl. And also in this photo, it was quite I've got a really long arm, you know. Like, it just worked out what it was, like a little lad arm. So I had a choice to make, another choice to make, and my little lad actually started playing football at the time as well. My wife would go down and watch him, and I went down to watch him play football. And when I got home, she went, "How did it go?" And I said, "I'm the coach." So I basically volunteered to be the coach of the football team. So not only left my job, new baby, coaching the lads' football team. You might also notice on my right foot is bare there because in the same month I broke my metatarsal, which is the most football injury you could ever have. I broke my metatarsal, and to look after a baby, look after a football team, you don't think with a broken foot. So moving on, that's how I got to be an illustrator. That's where I got to. And what I want to go through with you is some of my close but no cigar moments, things I learned along the way. So again, a bit like Jordan said, it's not dwelling on the failure, what can you take from that failure? So these are a range of projects, and some of the brands I can't talk about, one of the ones which will be in the future, and 2 is, MBAs and things like that. So, while I was at Forepoint, a major chocolate brand got in touch, and they wanted me to pitch, which again, I've pitched for since then, but they asked me to pitch for a project we're doing for a World Cup. And what they wanted to do was create a series of 30 characters. Each would be a card or a sticker that would go in each pack of that chocolate bar all across Europe. The actual budget for it that they told me blew my mind. It was like more than a year's wage from where I was working for 4 points. Possibly could have tipped me into leaving and things like that. But what they wanted me to actually work on was something that I wasn't comfortable with. And they asked me to create these characters, and these characters were all doing different strange things, and they wanted to create one character to get buy-in, and then the commission the rest. So this is my first on the left, awful. Second one, pretty bad. Third one, it's just, I cringe when I see it. But what I did was, I tried to take on a project that wasn't me, wasn't what I do, it's not how I illustrate, and I tried to do it mainly because of money. I wasn't successful, I came second, told me, I came second to an illustrator, and I said, again, it wouldn't be the money, but I would have to try and create 30 characters and something I wasn't comfortable doing. Really, I'm really happy I didn't do that, because it taught me that I need to, when someone tries to push me, to work on what I know, how I illustrate, not how I want someone else has illustration. I mean, I know illustrators, you know, Martin Chatterton, George Hollingworth, who your lecturers here, they would eat that up. But for me, I wasn't comfortable with it, and that's what I learned from that project. I didn't get it, I know quite well I didn't. Premier League TV got in touch. They got in touch and asked if I wanted to be involved with the Manchester derby. At the time, it was the first derby between City United, where Guardiola and Mourinho were the managers. It was a big deal, it was a big game, both competing for the league. And they said, look, we've no budget, but can you create an illustration and we'll get you on TV, you'll be on Premier League TV, you've seen, you know, all over the world. And I weighed it up, and I don't like doing work for free, but we've got to balance that with where can people see it, how can they see it, and we'll get more work from it. And I thought, stuff that my mates will see, this is great. So they actually came to my house. This is myself anymore, that was myself. They came to my house with the Premier, you know, microphone and everything, full camera crew and everything. I couldn't believe it, and they filmed me illustrating and actually interviewing about how I thought the game was going to go and stuff. This is crazy. So we all packed up and they'd done the interview, they packed up. I said, so when is it on TV? And they said, oh, just before the game. And I said, so what channel will we be able to see it on? She said, well, you're going to see it in the UK. And I said, why is that? She said, it's Premier League TV. Premier League TV sell the rights to Sky. And Sky will be showing this. This will go to the rest of the world. 170 million people will see this, but UK won't. And I was like, what does that? All the world can see it, but all my mates and my family can't sit down and watch it. So I was just literally waving from the door thinking, oh, what am I doing? So anyway, so that was literally ask questions, read the brief. I also worked with a major sporting channel in America. I've done a few projects with them, but they got in touch with me and said they wanted to do a project on the Premier League, and they wanted an illustration of a player for each of the teams. And at the time I was really busy with Forepoint work, and at the time I was really busy with other work, and I thought, it's only 20 players in this style, which I can get these out, and I didn't get them out. I literally failed, and it's the only time, I'm not saying it's the only time I failed, it's the only time I've not judged how much work you need to do in a space of time. And I remember delivering these in, and they looked terrible. They're just really bad, and I was so embarrassed to send over, but I did. And I've done it from Houston. But what it taught me was work out how long, don't lie to that client, be honest to that client, work out how long that project's going to take it. For me, I didn't work out that actually 20 illustrations, when you break it down for so many days, it's actually in the time they were given 3 a day. Well, I can do 3 a day, I can do a 9-to-6 job. But I thought, oh, there's this special time I'll magic up somewhere, you know, we've got 3 kids from it. So I basically failed, and I failed to deliver that, and I learned loads from it, because I'll never over-promise again. And the other thing is, and I'll go into it later, is be honest with the client. Say to the client, actually, I can't do this in 2 weeks, but I'll tell you what, I can do it in 3 weeks. And most of the time, they've got that extra week. They're giving themselves buffers. Just be honest with clients, and usually they've got that time to be flexible with. This one broke my heart a bit. I'm not a massive F1 fan, but I do love F1, and an agency got in touch with me to work with one of the biggest F1 teams out there. I can't say which one. And they said, we want to create content for this F1 team. We want to publish that online, and then and that's what they asked me to do. So I was like, great, and I gave them a fee about how much I wanted to charge for that, and they said, that's the way out. I was like, no, we can't afford that. We can't afford that, you need to reduce your costs. And I thought, again, balancing act. I reduced my costs, support this F1 team, somebody putting it out, promote it, blah, blah, blah. And I signed an NDA, so I was thinking, well, I signed an NDA, so I can't talk about it before, fair enough. And then, so I reduced my costs. And then when the work was actually launched, it was the highest grossing post for that F1 team that year. It got so many shares, so many likes, people were loving it. And I'm thinking, I'm going to share this, and they said, you can't share it, you can't talk about it, you can never say you work with that client. And I was like, what do do you mean? And I said, you signed an NDA. So another piece of advice, read the full NDA, because the NDA tells you kind of like a post by it, because I would never reduce my costs for something I didn't then talk about, because there isn't that balance. And I learned loads from that. And they came back to me and said, do you want to do some more? I don't know. We'll never talk about it. They'll get me going. This one is quite interesting. I'm big into football, and women's football we've really taken off the time. There's a World Cup coming up, and the company, sports company got in touch with me and said, would you like to work on some content for the Women's World Cup? And I was like, yeah, that'd be brilliant. I really want to get involved, especially with the World Cup as well. And their idea was to, when a match had happened, they were going to then sit down and think of a brief for an illustration. They'd find that brief to me, the illustrator. I would then create some roughs, send them back, they'd be approved, come back, and then I'd have 2 hours to create that illustration. Because we wanted the content out. The game had happened, we wanted it out, so it's still related to the game. And that was great for the first one, because the kickoff was 3 o'clock. And I managed to get the work finished by about 7 or something like that. The second one came from a game that kicked off at 8 o'clock. And I sat there and went, it's not worked out. Because at 8 o'clock you've got a game, 10 o'clock they're thinking of a brief. You're getting it 10:30. You're then working 2 hours. I was like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, finishing the illustration, never sending the men's. It's like, what? And I'd already signed up for it, I couldn't get out of it. So every other day, I was staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning, doing work on it. And I hadn't thought about it. And I learned a lot from that. You've got to understand every part of that brief and what they expect you. And since then, I have done live content, because live content means you have to sit there in the house and not do anything, and it's not for me. I've learned a lot from that one. But I've got that content used, it's really rapid and fast, but this is one of the biggest close but goes to down moments. Everyone's dream, if you're a footballer, is to play for your country, and not as a football illustrator to play, to create illustrations for your country, the same thing. When you play for England, you get a cap. I never got a cap, but in my head, even Dad thought I was getting a cap. I've created some illustrations online, and I do quite a lot of experimenting, throwing things out, and hoping that obviously companies, organisations, and clubs will see that work. And I put this out, and I wanted to make something really simple, but had sort of energy and pace to it, and work with typography and interacted with it. And I've even took that into augmented reality. So I've downloaded some apps and worked on that. So I was bringing the illustration to life by creating layers of augmented reality. And I just thought, fair enough, I can't create an app to do that, but I can show people the possibility of what I can achieve. So England got in touch, or the company that worked with England got in touch and said, we love it. And what we've got coming up is a big game, which is England's 1,000th competitive game, and we wanted to do the programme for it. And I said, this is amazing. This is not only working for England, but this is working for England on their 1,000th competitive game, and it's the core of the programme. And, the football illustration said, this is the highlight, this is the biggest you can go. And also, they asked, we want to make it augmented reality. And that's the England cover, the one type part of the logos, and now it's when you use your phone and it will pop out. And it was just, I just kept saying to my dad, I said, this is it, Dad, this is going to be the biggest thing ever. I'm going to be working on covers for all over the world and stuff like that. I just thought it was going to be massive. And this is how the cover turned out. They're very photography. It was one of those decisions, like I said, probably a meeting, another meeting, and not going, no, I'm not doing it. So I did that work, and it didn't happen. And I actually know the guy who did the cover. He's actually from Preston and works in New York. He's a really great guy. I've worked with him past for ESPN, people, things like that. And so I'm really happy for him, obviously. And but they did actually use my work inside on like 7 spread, but it's not the same. And if you look at my political stars, that's my former political stars. But there's an even bigger one. Like any illustrator, any graphic designer, anybody you talk to probably wants to work tonight. No exception, I want to work tonight. It was the pandemic had just hit. We were all in lockdown. And I went into panic mode. I had 3 kids at home. I had an 18-month-year-old who was just running about and couldn't be left. I had an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old doing their schoolwork, so I had to monitor them doing their high school work and their primary school work, and everything. And my wife works in hospital, so she had to go to hospital. She actually had a job that people needed. No one needed the football illustrator in the pandemic because there's no football, there's nothing going on. And I just thought, this is me done. I don't think I can mortgage, what am I going to do? How am I going to live? And I thought, this is the time now to just do something new, think about something new, get something new out there. And I was watching at the time the abstract series on Netflix, which I don't know if you've seen it, but watch them all as well. Watch even the house design ones, because you get something out of every one of them. I watched them over and over again, and there was one of the episodes which was they were interviewing the photographer, Flanagan, and he's an amazing photographer, and this lady described his work as bold, graphic and fearless. And I went, that's it, that's what I'm doing. Whatever I'm doing, whatever I create, is going to be bold, graphic and fearless. And then he wrote it down, stuck it on the computer, you are going to be bold, graphic and fearless. The problem with it was, my 18-year-old could not be left. She was running around, I couldn't work, I literally couldn't work. And it got to the point where she would sleep for 2 hours in the afternoon. So I had 2 hours every day to get something out, get something done. I wasn't getting commissions, 2 hours every day. So I decided I'm going to work on LeBron James. LeBron James is going to be my star player. I'm going to illustrate. He has power, he has pace, his strength. He's the biggest star. Everyone knows him. He's got an iconic look. This was my first sketch. I was running around. So you can see I had the basic premise of what I wanted to do. I wanted to be bold, graphic and fearless. I then took it to the computer. So my first 2 hours about this, which it's obviously not great, but in my head I knew what I wanted it to look like. It's kind of like a bit like Chase said yesterday, where the guy who's making the elephant out of wood, you keep taking the bits away and moving the bits till it looks like the elephant. And that's kind of what I did, and I ended up taking it to this point. So I just wanted to do single colours, graphic, and have impact. And I did that. I was really excited about it. I thought, I want to get this out there. I don't just want to post it on Twitter. I want to do something with it so it explodes, whatever. And I never had anything that explodes. I thought, this time I'm going to actually think about it. So I was going to try to think about it. So I decided to mock them up as Nike adverts in a tube station on a digital display. What's we going to do? I'm in a pandemic. They can sue me if they want. I just thought, stuff it. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to put it out there. As if it's a Nike advert. Mock it up, obviously. And then I created a couple more illustrations. So I did boxers. I wanted to see that the style kind of works, and can you get commissions from it? And I did bird camp, and really about how can we be bold, graphic, and fearless with it, and how can we be simple, have that Nike brand with it, and have impact. So when I posted it out, I did the title. I know it's really cheesy, but I think what to call it. I put a boy can dream, can't he? So what I was trying to say was, it's not really the Nike, but I can dream, and let me have this. Let me have this one. And I posted it, and I was looking after a little girl, and my kids were on their iPads and stuff, doing their schoolwork, and they were saying, Daddy, the iPad's not working, it's just pinging and blah, blah, blah. And it literally took off, it was like ping, 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 and it just wouldn't stop. And like all day, ping, ping, ping. I was like, oh my God, this is the best. And I don't get about 50 likes, 100 likes on post. This was getting hundreds of likes, and there's people all over the world from companies like Nike and Pepsi and Saatchi following me, and I was like, what is going on? And even to the point where Mike Rigby liked it. You made it when Mike Rigby liked it. I mean, he's working for RBA at the time, which in New York, and Mike doesn't follow me, Mike doesn't know me, but Mike Rigby posts him. And it got to the point where I was getting up to 2,000 likes, and I know a lot of illustrators get 10,000 likes, but for me this was huge. And my wife came over from work, and I said, it's gone massive. She's like, what do you mean it's gone massive? I was like, 2,000 likes, it's amazing. I said, this could go big. And she's like, I've had a hard day doing the patients in the hospital, this is feeling great. So I went back to my computer to check the email, and this email came up from Nike. And I said, oh my God, the first line said, just a quick note, can you please take that post down as soon as possible? And I was like, oh no, I'm going to get sued, something bad's going to happen. And the second line said, because we really want to work with you on the project, and we really want to work with the style. So I took it down at 1973. I took a screen grab of it because it was so quick because I couldn't get we were trying to wait for 2000 and I couldn't get it. And the reason I wanted to work with on the project was the guy who got in touch with me was the creative director of Nike at the Oregon headquarters. They've built these new complexes of innovation centres. This one's the LeBron, this one he's working, which is the LeBron Nike Innovation Centre. It's an amazing complex. We've got a chance to view it online. It's got its own indoor green track. It's got its own indoor basketball court. It's got everything you think of, which tests your muscles, toes. It tests how you're running badly. It has rooms that are really hot, so you can check the temperature in Tokyo compared to the temperature in Norway and things like that. It's a crazy complex, and it And they said, well, we built this thing, and now we're kitting it out, and we really want to put your graphics as murals in the centre. And I just went, this is it. You know what I mean? That's it. You can't ever not talk about Project Ignite that we've done with Ron Innovation Centre. And I just thought, this is how I made it. So I created the graphics. I got them over tonight, did it quite quickly over a few weeks, got it there. I had to check Pantone for wall paints and all that sort of stuff. And I said to them, well, what's going live? And he said, well, the thing is, it's an amazing centre. It's at our complex, but because of COVID, nobody's coming in. With no staff, we're not going to have anyone here, so we're not going to open it until that's rectified. And I was like, all right, great, we'll just keep it posted. So this went on, and every night, every night, I think, tomorrow, I might get lunch tomorrow, and then I'm going to have to work at night, and LeBron's going to be stood for my illustrations, and it's just going to be like, I'm going to do talks like this. And I thought I made it, and then it went on for 12 months, nothing. And it got to something like 14, 15 months, and I was looking online, and it came up that they'd launched it. And I thought, well, contact me, you know. And what I soon found out was I sent a few emails off, and the team who built the place had been expanded. You can imagine the COVID and working with expanding the team and working on the projects. And there's also expanded the design team, so the people I've worked with were there, or worked with departments, or even different countries. So I had no one to contact, and a few people I did contact never really got back in touch with me, but I thought it doesn't matter, because we launched this amazing website. They've got this video of LeBron, which LeBron walked around in the Liverpool kit, which I think is one of them. And he went around the centre, and I thought, hey, I watched the video intently and I couldn't see a word. And then I went on the website, and there's tons of videos. You just go into the main website, you go on there, and they show you the track and all different things. And I went through every inch of that website, and I worked on each once. And I would love to tell you that these are the actual walls, because these are the illustrations that I've used, and I'd love to tell you that these are the actual walls, but they're not. I'm not from Photoshop because I needed to make something. And I'd love to tell you that's what they were, but they weren't. They actually did produce them. They are on walls in the centre, and the only reason I know is because I managed to stalk the company that actually painted them on the walls, because they do all the walls tonight. And they got in touch with me and said, oh yeah, I got pictures, and they were the pictures they sent. So I'm very grateful that they sent the pictures of them painting on the walls and stuff, but I can't exactly show that's my big night project. And if I'm honest, it broke my heart. I'm not going to promote it. I promote it as I work at night, but I'm not going to promote it because it broke my heart. It should have been my big thing, and it wasn't. So I learned from that, let it go. And I think learning from that is, don't hype things up. A bit like John said before, with the project, it gets to the point where you deliver it in. Don't hype it up until it's there, it's done, and you've got that content from it. So, they're my close-up real cigars, and these are my cigar moments, because we're not going to come in today and tell you that I messed up everything. So these are my cigar moments, and first one is, when I first left and we got our baby and I was support and all the things, I got an email through from Rose Design in London, a lot of them know, amazing design agency, absolutely brilliant design agency, doing lots of awards. They got in touch and said that they were working with a new client, Tembet. Tembet are an online betting company, mainly sports and things like that. They were trying to rebrand themselves to stand out in the market, which was, and Rose actually did this sort of a couple of years ago on this very subject, the market itself was very photograph-led, it was all over the show, it was all in the mornings really, and they wanted to stand out and create something different. And the problem with actually having photography is that it's actually slower to download and people see the content. And they wanted something that had real impact. So they created this brand, the Tembet. It's kind of like a stylized, number of shirts sort of thing. It's a stylized version of that. And then they used that brand really simply with colours from sports. So Barcelona, Juventus. So they used colour and graphics to create this really great brand for this company. And with that, they wanted to not use photography, they wanted to use predominantly illustration on the content that they could use. So they got in touch with me and they said, we've seen this illustration, this is something I produced years ago, I really liked it, but I didn't come from it, and I put it on Dribble, and they'd seen it on Dribble, and they said, can we have a chat about creating the brand look for illustration for Tembet? And I was like, of course you can, absolutely amazing. We developed they gave me a brief of illustrating a few footballers, a few generic ones, a few famous ones, and the one that copy of the project was this one of Ronaldo, which then is a polyplay illustration I produced, and I just love it. You can tell it is, it's simple, it's graphic, and we do quite a few versions of this, but this is what they love, this sort of simple idea. And the reason being is that it's made from vector, so it's made with, someone to explain this, because I don't quite know this, it makes UX speeds faster, apparently, rather than pixels on the photograph. So we then created generic players. So with this, I would create different players doing different things, and then they wanted that artwork to perfection. So to come through the Forepoint artworking, and anyone who works in Illustrator knows you can deal with points and stuff. Well, there has to be no straight points. Everything has to be precise. Everything has to be to the point. There's no overlaps, no nothing, and that meant shadows and everything. And what I had to build was these files that could send. I hope you find this interesting. I find it really interesting that it's rather than just doing illustration and sending it off, it's actually a complex model made up of all these layers which they could turn on and turn off. So it meant that the client had content that was editable by them. So they could change the illustration to how they wanted it. Not position, but they could change, like on here, it's got the skin colour, the hair length, the beard, the shirts, whether it's stripes, tops. So you can see here by clicking just a couple of layers, you've got sleeves and stripes, and they can change the colour of them. So they can change that player from Man United to Newcastle and click. And then that's their content then to put out and bet on the ranking or whatever. And then you could then change the skin colour, add a beard, or change the sock pattern, something like that. You could change the badge shape, you could make the hair shorter and things like that. But it was such a complex way of working to get it so that those layers exactly went over the top. And it was tons of work. And long hair was back there, and you can imagine then, when we asked you to do all the different sports, it got a bit much. But it was the thing I needed, because I'd just gone as an illustrator on my own, I was doing different projects, different things, and this was just something to get my teeth into and get working on. And there's something about artworking, there's something about that sort of, some people find it mundane, and I find it quite interesting to just go and do. And we had every sport, and then in that sport you'd have 5 boxers, you'd have 10 lots of footballers and 3 lots of American footballers, and you were constantly trying to create this style that was part of the brand, and that was part of the language. And it just felt really good to be working with a great agency and a great brand, and that went on to be like famous players, so like you've got Southgate and Gareth Bale, and then that's kind of look at how they use the content on it. And then they could then put that out on social media channels, so they could create stories, they could create content for social media, like Twitter and things like that, and they could change the shirt colours of the guys on the horses, and they could change the skin colour and the hair length on the guys who were tapping each other. So every time it was different content, it was not infinite content, but it was great for them, it really worked. I also worked on the casino side as well, which was, it was less of the flexible illustration, they didn't want to change it, but they wanted a series of characters that they could use for their sort of more of a VIP higher class end. So I helped them develop these illustrations of like people who go to casino basically, but I really enjoyed doing that as well because it's quite good for the sports side. And I won an award, which I've never won an award before. Rose win lots of awards. And Rose put in for the design award, the 1, 2, 3 awards I think, and they told me I won an award. I thought, oh, we won an award. And I sat there watching this website as they were launch, saying, oh, this people won this award, and this person won this award, and the illustration category came up, and I won Gold Fresh Award. I was just like, sat there, oh God, because I didn't put it, they did for me. It was amazing agency, and I'm really proud to work on that project, and to get that at the end of it after all the hard work. I still work to this day. I've worked with them for, worked with Template for like 3 years now, so it's content, but I love it. My final one, because I don't think I can top this for the other person, worked with EC. This is me. If you're on social, then be social. The reason I say that is that there's different ways of being on social, isn't there? There's ways of just looking at content, there's ways of being nasty on websites and things like that, there's ways of being nice. And I found that if you can interact with people and talk about the things you like, more than often than not, you get things back. And I listened to a podcast by a guy called Johan Weisberg, who's a director and an illustrator, and he works for Chief Productions in Manchester. And listened to a podcast, and he given a talk, and he talked about his career. One of the stories he told was about when he'd been to North Korea. And it's such a great story, because he'd gone to North Korea filming, and the army had come into his room, and all this stuff had happened, and taking his film off him. And I just got really interested. At the end of the talk, I went straight onto it, and I went, just listen to the Johan Weisberg interview, loved his work, and the interview got to hear about North Korea. So he messaged back and said, Dave, big fan of the work. He said, just thanks for sharing that. You know, I'm just getting involved in the illustration world myself, and it's great to hear that from you. A couple of, I think a month or so later, something like that, I was being interviewed on the podcast, and he obviously saw that I was being interviewed on the podcast. I thought, oh, listen to that, because it's Dave, like, and he listened to it. At the end of my interview, the guy said, what would be your dream project? And I went, my dream project would be working for the BBC on an intro sequence to something like the World Cup, the Euros. I don't know if anyone saw it a few years ago for the Russian World Cup. They did the animation, which was the tapestry, and I remember thinking that was just the best thing I've ever seen. If you haven't seen it, go check it out on YouTube. It's just amazing, and they had an illustrator involved in that, and I just thought happy to work on something like that, which is so iconic for the BBC. And I said that in my interview. Well, he was listening to that, and I didn't know, but he was working on a pitch for BBC for the Euros 2020. And they pitched an idea, and a few other companies pitched an idea, and then obviously the pandemic hit and things like that, so the BBC did, I don't think they really knew. So BBC was sort of working out whether the tournament was actually going to happen or not, because of COVID, and it might not happen. And I think they left it a little bit late to make decisions and how they're going to go with it, but 2 months before the tournament itself, they contacted Chief and said, you've been successful, and we want you to create the intro sequence to the Euros. So the first thing they did was they had a plan of what they wanted to do, and they said, Johan said, I know this guy, he can deliver this stuff for us, let's get in touch. So they got in touch with me, and I was really busy at the time, and it wasn't Johan who got in touch with the company, and I was like, I didn't know it was him, and I was thinking, I'm really busy, maybe I should just say, look, I'm really busy, I can't help you about this time. And I took the Zoom call. Luckily, he said, you might be interested in this one, and I worked on the intro sequence to the Euros. And at the time, when we were talking about projects, I said, well, what style of mine do you want to use? I've got plenty of styles that I do, and they went, we want to use all of them, we want to use everything we create and put it on screen. And I was like, just dream stuff. So I created player illustrations. We had 3D artists who created things like the crown, things like that, and the animated lions and stuff, and the little illustrators, things like the little men and the buses and stuff. And they brought it all together, and Yogi and his team did an amazing job. And I created different styles for the players, so I got Spanish feel, Italian, Welsh. I created like an Eastern European one, so it's kind of like patterns and pottery and things like that. It was such an intensive project for a couple of months, and I was rattling things out. One of the biggest issues that I had was that with any tournament, players get injured or players get dropped. So as I'm illustrating these players, they're getting dropped and injured. So I've done illustrations that I think, I can't wait to show people this, and then they got injured. I think about doing the one. I was like, I want to show that. I want to show the Ibrahimovic. He said, show it afterwards. So a lot of illustrations, and these are just some of them, players that I illustrated in different styles, which they didn't actually get on TV, and the players were replaced by lesser known players, I should say. And it was really intensive. I had to work at night and things like that to get it done. And then last week, they said, look, BBC had an idea to have all of the teams represented on the last screen. This is on the screen for like 2 seconds. And they said, what we're going to do, because there's only a week, we're going to get a lot of people to do this. And I went, why? And they said, because 24 players is illustrating. And I went, I'm going to do it. I'll do 24 players. So I literally got on the computer straight away, said which players you want, and I illustrated 24 players, and it was less than a week, and we did less than a week from the tournament started. And these are what I created. I was really proud of what I created, but it was that was intense. I had to create 24 players, a few of them changed as well. And what was quite nice about that one was, as the tournament went on, I didn't realise what we were doing, was that the actual, they took the players out with the teams that did not have competition, so it ended up with just 2 players at the end, so that was quite nice. And this is it. still get emotional about it now. You know, they came on and went into Europe really funny, and I was telling the kids like this, and they took home, because I was like doing stuff, and I had to talk about it with people. Just a couple of quotes. Well, Hispanic celebrates success, and again, it just happens. But it's more important to heed lessons of failure. There is failure in what you do. There is things that you don't succeed at, but you have to take something from it. You have to go to the next project, knowing that you won't make that mistake again. And that's how you get to the point where you're working with clients. That's where you get the trust from those clients, because you've lived from those experiences. No one does amazing work. They all mess up or do something wrong along the way, and it's what you take from that matters. So 4 things that I thought of, my words of wisdom, the one kind of thing is learn from your mistakes, like I just said. Don't make it again. Make friends on social media. Like I said before, there's so many projects that I've got by just liking someone's work or saying, I really like what you do, or I'd love to work with you in the future. And that's not like pestering people. That's not like throwing things at people saying, we want to work with you and blah, blah, blah. It's just about being nice and just saying, I really like work, or I really like this piece of work you just posted. It doesn't feel like it's a connection at the time. It will be a connection. Like, I worked with CNN on a project where they were meeting in New York, and they were talking about a project for CNN with a picture of Donald Trump as a stained glass window. And this guy went, I'm an illustrator who's worked on stained glass window designs. I'll get in touch with him. They're in New York, I'm in Chorley, and they're talking to CNN about me and showing my work, and they did an illustration of Donald Trump, which ended up being 3D stained glass window stuff. They all meet, they all connect, you will get something out of it. And then what you get, you don't. Be honest with clients. This is what one thing I've learned is you will make this mistake with an illustrator. Someone will contact you and say, we've got 2 days to do this and we've got 50 illustrations, and you'll go, doesn't matter, I'll do it. But actually work it out in the time of the day, how long it's going to take you, and how long it's taken in the past, and if you've got amends, and be honest with it. Because if you mess up that client, they'll never use you again. And they go into other organisations and they'll never use you again. It's all about delivery, it's all about trust. And to be honest, I learned that all from years of design. If you don't deliver your stuff, that client won't work with you again. You've got to deliver it. And if you can't deliver because you've got COVID, because you've broken your foot, because whatever you've done, just be honest with them, just say, this is happening. And as soon as you tell them that, they ain't got time to work it out. They've got time to work it out. Just be honest with clients. And then the last one is, don't work too hard. That's what I did. I did it for too long, and I missed out on probably loads of stuff with my kids and things like that. Fair enough, I built up this career as an illustrator. It's great now to get to work from home, run my kids' football team, and I've watched my little girl grow up all the way through. Not this moment, but I regret working as hard as I did early on, because it wasn't worth it. I'd swap it around. So that's me. I couldn't think of a star prize for the raffle, and I don't have design books and things like that I can give you. I'm not saying you should buy something and give you, I thought that's a bit funny. So I actually thought, the winner of the prize for mine is a portrait voucher. If you win it, I'll do a portrait of you, a family member, or a famous footballer, or a pop star, whatever you want in the Aston. It has to be one of my style films. So if you go on my website, it has to be something that I've created for, not too complex, but yeah, basically that's what I'm about. That's my thing. My first day at all.
That's awesome. Brilliant. I don't know what to say. Thank you very much. Before we get to the raffle, which leads to what? We're okay. We're all in groups. Yeah, we like pictures. Is there any questions? Can you just shout it?
Especially when you're working at Forepoint and taking commissions, were you ever scared or worried about burning out?
Yeah. I did burn out. I did that a lot. I used to say to my wife, I can't believe it, ESPN just got in touch, or Man City just got in touch. And she would go, so what? That's how the person was doing it now. It was great. And I was like, I can't turn that down. And that was my problem. I kept not
say that self-initiated briefs have sort of shaped your career?
Definitely. You should put it forward, but it really did. Everything that I've ever done, starting from that Man City job, through to the night job, through to the England job, I didn't go, oh right, now I'm creating a Man City illustration, I'm just going to do that forever. I wanted to do the next thing, because that's how I work. It's a bit like, I suppose it's a bit like being a graphic designer. If you work for one client, you don't then go on to the next client, you do the same fonts, the same photography, the same styles, the same colours, you actually do something completely new and different. And that was my sort of thing, why do I have to keep creating the same thing? Why do I have to keep pigeonhole myself in style? I can go and do something textual, and something better. The way I work is I actually have the simplest illustration through to more detail. I'm actually working with Brentford Football Club at the moment, because they actually, I do a different design for each one of their colours during the season, program covers in a different style on that range. And every one of those styles is something I want to do to post it out and sort of sit and work on it. And that's, as you can see, Man City, Night, England, all these projects came from me posting stuff going, I thought this was cool, try this. And then someone's gonna like it. And it's alright having 10,000 followers, which I've got on Twitter, it's fine having 10,000 followers, but I'm aiming those posts at 60 people, 20 people, one person who works for some creative director or something, who'll show someone, a bit like seeing them one, I'm aiming at them. And it's great that Joe goes to Manchester likes it because this is not good, but actually I'm aiming at someone. And when they see it, that's how I think, I've never contacted someone directly and said, can I work with you? I've only ever got an email that says, can I work with you? And that's from self-initiated projects. And the only one that I have done that, and I keep trying to press it off, I will not work. No, I wouldn't be cheap. I want to work with Preston November. Literally, I used to work the other side of the park. I love Preston November, like the second floor and stuff. And I just not interested at all.
Let's go to the Preston position now.
Think about Jordan and the experience you had with Nike and stuff, and sounded like the end results sounded heartbreaking in terms of not getting that wage and stuff. I teach on the advertising course here, so a lot of my students will be going into where they'll be hiring partners like yourself, and they'll be making that calls after, just looking for collaborators and things. How would you want to be treated by them? What would you ask for as best practice as a partner?
As I said, check NDAs, check the brief, and ask the questions. I always do that. And with Nike, I don't blame Nike for what they've done. The reason my heart's broken is because I wasn't part of the big promotion, but I know they have 10,000 things to do. Great things are not only, probably the fact that they contacts. So I don't blame them at all. But it was part of the process when we were doing it, and when the team was together, that I would tell people the bond next to my illustration, and that's what you want as an illustrator, you want to promote it. You know, I've promoted it since, and I haven't actually had that much traffic from it. I have 2,000 likes, I haven't had it. But the weird thing is because I got a bit sad about it, I actually posted the original illustration that I knocked over the Nike adverts on LinkedIn, and that got 4,500 likes, and I've got lots of commissions from it since. So I'm now working with, I can't talk about it, 2 big organisations who've seen it from my original stuff, not the actual stuff that I posted. So, how you want to be treated? You want to be treated as part of the design team and still what it is. And I was part of that, I just wasn't a major part of them. Because there was Euros that they did highlight, there was one of the bronze model and stuff there, and obviously that was high impact and stuff. But, no, I've let it go now, I'm over it. From an outside point of view, what was that? Podcast, the billboard one.
Oh, behind the billboard.
Behind the billboards. So the guy who hosts behind the billboards is from BBC, and he worked with me on the BBC project because he's creative. He used to go to billboards, and they got actually said, "We talk about your project," and they actually are listening to the one that said, "Oh, you're on this podcast." So I listened to the podcast, and they were doing their top 21 advertising campaigns of the year, and mine was number 20. They weren't even advertising campaigns. They'd seen it on LinkedIn, and they put it in there, and they went, "Oh, I think you got this can't." Sorry, so that's your question.
Which like social media platform is like the most successful one, like getting responses and stuff from when you're putting your stuff out?
Yeah, it was experience on it is definitely not Facebook. Unless I left Facebook about 14 months ago and then put back. But Facebook, if you're selling local prints to local people, friends and family, that's great. But for me, did nothing for anything. Twitter, probably one of the bigger ones that I use, because of the community on there, sports related stuff, and a lot of my work was in Twitter. Instagram was a major one, tons of people got accounts on Instagram. And then I never thought LinkedIn was for me, and I never did, and I never was thinking, okay, LinkedIn, I was like, why? It just it seems so stuffy, but it's on there, all like business, like, honestly, I've been on LinkedIn, and the connections you make on there kind of blow my mind. It literally, like, you just go through and go, oh, people extra. People like connect, so you connect with people, it's crazy, people connect with people. But yeah, that's through that.
Chris?
I really like the process stuff. I find that most interesting. I teach like second-year illustration and graphics, and we do a little bit of professional practice. So it's really interesting to see, like, what goes into actually like delivery for a client. Right? So I'm interested to know more about that. But the BBC stuff, the moving image stuff, like how did you deliver that? And was it free reign for the animation company at the end? Did you just create things and go make it move? Did you have a vision for it?
It's a dream project because not working, but it was there. It was there. They thought the strategy was kind of graffiti-led art from all these countries. So it was their baby, their creation was really dynamic. It was kind of like part of the vision for what we did. I wasn't part of how that vision looked. It was Joe and the team that did that. So I would create like illustrations and things like that. And they would get the artists together. So they would storyboard it from their production team and their directors would do that and they storyboard it all together. And then I would create illustrations that did that. Some of them did and change the style and stuff like that. But it was very much, it's a shame really, because working on a dream project, but it's COVID. And I think those their offices and I'd love to have gone to the room, but I think we could do this system. It was Zoom calls every now and again. It was in a 2-month proper pressure situation where I had to do all these better illustrations. They had to do all the 3D animation. They had all these things going. And I didn't think about that when I was doing that. I wanted to show some process, but my process on that is how I build up an illustration. But there was plenty of things I got from that.
Would you say, like, as an illustrator, is delivery, like delivery of files important?
Really important. Again, working for Forepoint for 20 years, I've learned everything you can learn about delivering a PDF, delivering the highest resolution file, delivering vectors that have all the points in the right place, delivering fonts that are outlined, not using Pantone, using Focal or RGB. I learned all that over that time. You can't take that away. It's a shame, really, that if I just started out not doing graphics and trans illustration, I wouldn't have how it makes it a faster process for me.
Thanks for that. You're listening.
One more question and another raffle.
With social media and that, there's a lot of like pressure on artists to like try and find like their niche art style. But with yours being like about 20 other different ones, would you say it'd be better for artists to try and have like a handful of different art styles that can be like identified as them, but when put together, not look like the same artist?
There are tons of illustrators out there, you'll know some illustrators who have their style and they get tons of work and everyone knows them and they talk about this because of it, because you know that style guy, that thing. And that's absolutely brilliant, that's what they do. For myself, I can't work in this in one way. But I don't look at it as having 20 styles, I look at it as creating content that is visually interesting to me and I hope will be visually interesting to my potential clients or clients. If you look at anyone now was like my hero, Chris Newman. If you know any, he's one of that chap's not the first one illustration. If you look at his work, he's created like Iron in New York and things like that, and he creates content, but he hasn't got a specific style. He'll do something that looks better one time, something that looks watercolor one time, because he creates content and he thinks it's visually interesting with the product, and that's what he delivers. I don't have to have a style. Why do I have a style? If social media can be looked at a moment, or you can be looked at over your career. And I suppose I try to be looked at the moment a little bit. The night one, in a day, got me the night project. So I find out style, you'll see Catalyst, the feature like it, and was commissioned by the days, which is crazy. But they didn't go only want to work their planning with some practical portfolio stuff, and you saw that, and in truth, then try and probably get the what's inside before it becomes inside, you know what I mean? But I'm not saying that people should learn style because there's, you know, some amazing illustrators have styles, it's just work for me, that's the way I work.
Excellent. I've just had news from the back in light of your start prize. There will be actually a 5-10 minute window where if anyone wants to buy a raffle ticket. So the raffle will be drawn in about 5 to 10 minutes if anybody wants to buy on the street.
Take your card.
You've got any questions?
In the meantime, yeah, if anybody wants a chance of getting a Dave Flanagan.
Can I ask you a question? What do you think about, I was quite interested about this, like asking illustrator students and lecturers, how do you perceive someone who has a lot of styles of illustration, a lot of ways of working rather than one?
When I see work, I personally think that even though it sort of looks different, it's all similar style. But when you draw it, it's all the same sort of concept. Rather than football, sports. I think it allows flexibility. So when you're asking drawing people,
And if I was